Yeah, well, and so I immediately was like, I have to go and see this place. So I drove up to Danvers, and I went in, and they still have most of the buildings have been completely torn down and rebuilt, but there's the Kirkbride structure and the main building that they've kept the same. And so I walked, and very foreboding for me because I just seen it in this other context for so long, you know. And so I walk in through the front door, and it's like immaculate inside. There's like a lemon water station and a row of IMAX set up, and I'm like, this looks different, you know. And there was a concierge there, and he said, can I help you? And I said, well, I'm kind of a bit of a horror fan. He goes, session 9, right? I'm like, session 9! So we start to talk, and he tells me that there are people who moved in and moved out within a month, you know, because they had experiences. And I'm like, did you know about this? He's like, no, when I started working here, I didn't know anything, and my friends found out where I was working and said, you should Google where you work. You know? Anyway, this other lady comes over, and I'm holding a pamphlet, and she's like, are you thinking about moving in? You know? I'm like, well, actually, I'm a horror fan, and she's like, session 9, right? I'm like, yes, session 9! So we started talking, and she's like, I'm like, you know, so do you have any stories? She's like, oh, you want to hear my stories? Okay, all right. And she starts telling me some stories of like knocking on the walls and like seeing someone at the end of a hall that's not there. And she actually breaks out her phone. She said, me and my boyfriend were sitting here watching a show, and we heard a sound behind us. And she's like, check this out. And she shows me a picture, and it's 2 handprints in her carpet. And yeah, I know, right? I'm like, this is a crazy Monday here in the Danvers area, right? For me, anyway. So I'm like, I said, is there anything of the traditional structure left? And he's like, just this building and some of the tunnels, which are so creepy that the Verizon guys don't want to go down there. And I'm like, well, that's creepy if the Verizon guys won't go. So he said, there's also an old cemetery. You can go check out the cemetery. So I said, okay, I'm going to go. Do you all want to come? I was really excited. I was like, y'all want to come? And the girl was like, I'm not going to this. I got enough ghosts up here. I don't need to go. So we go down to the cemetery, or I go down to the cemetery, and I get there. Very unassuming. It's like super ticky-tacky houses and everything there, and then across from it, the Danvers Cemetery, down this little hill. And I get there, and there's an old stone that's like just this big by this big, and it says, the Danvers State Hospital Cemetery, the echoes they left behind. And I'm like, why not Ghosts R Us at that point? Like, what is that? The echoes they left behind? Anyway, so I go in, and I'm, respectfully reading the gravestones, and it's, a very calm, peaceful day. And I'm walking through, and I remember from seeing the movie that they had those stake crosses, that they drive down to the ground, and there was none of those there. They were all replaced with, like, flat things. But when I got to the bottom, there was one tree, and against that tree, there was one of those stakes was leaning there. So, and I looked over to my left, and there were all those stakes were piled up around this tree just outside the cemetery. So obviously they were replacing them. But it was a very stark looking thing, all these stake crosses just piled around this one tree that had these severe vines wrapped up around it. So I was sort of walking over to it, and I took out my camera. I was like, I need to get a picture of this tree. There was just something about it. And I walked over, and I got to the precipice of the graveyard where like the woods started. And I stepped over the precipice to take a picture. And in that moment, there was this sound. And I actually looked up, and it had not rained at all that day, but it just started to pour suddenly down through the trees onto me. And I actually stopped and stepped back, and I said, okay, I'm leaving now. And I articulated that out loud. And I turned to walk, and as I did that, 5 seconds later, the rain stopped, and it didn't rain anymore. Whoa. And it was no glowing white orb, but it was enough for me. I didn't need the glowing white orb. Danvers, right? You're all going tomorrow, right? I assume.